It wasn't much of a club, really. You know the kind. A joint where you could have a sandwich and a few drinks and run interference for your girl on the dance floor.
Done with your coffee?
No. And don't rush me, will you? That tune! Why was there always that rotten tune? Following me around, beating in my head, never letting up. Did you ever want to forget anything? Did you ever want to cut away a piece of your memory or blot it out? You can't, you know. No matter how hard you try. You can change the scenery, but sooner or later you'll get a whiff of perfume or somebody will say a certain phrase or maybe hum something. Then you're licked again.
Yeah, I would have come to watch any of the films that have been on here. There aren't many truly independent cinemas around. So I took a look at the website to see what was going to be on, and I saw you dismantling the cinema. It's strange coming to see a place that I can see the evidence of lots and lots of activity over the years, but all I'm involved in doing is taking everything down and hopefully seeing it put back up on the new premises, and I might actually get to see a film then.
I was introduced to the Star and Shadow on the second or third day when I came to UK. I came to do an internship in a media company because I was studying in Denmark, and a part of the course was to do an internship in a media company somewhere, and I got a placement from Finland and from Newcastle. And as I'm from Finland, I thought I might as well go to Newcastle because I've never been there. So the people introduced Star and Shadow Cinema on the first night that I went to the internship place, basically.
I was working for volunteer, and I have interest in cinema, so I thought it's good for me, so I came. Because I thought it's still open, but it's actually demolishing and moving, so I'm kind of sad, but I'm glad I can at least help.
For the film night, started volunteering to actually help with the projection, the seating, the booth takings, eventually sort of graduating into putting on small seasons myself.
I've always been into creating things, art, various types of entertainment, actually the doing as well as the watching, and I'm just as happy being backstage as I am on stage or watching. So for me it was mostly about coming and making, but the idea of sharing film, I'd never worked in the cinema before. I didn't know the intricacies of the projection booth or anything like that.
I took a projection in 2007. That's been my main sort of role within the cinema, with the 35mm, of which we have some of it left there. That's what's left of the projector. The light box has been dismantled, and here we have the tower, which the 35mm reels came off and then came on again. And this is the 16mm, which we used to use at the beginning because the 35mm wasn't set up at that point, and we used the 16mm quite a lot.
I've been coming probably for a few years as coming to sort of events, so gigs and that type of thing, and always really enjoyed it and had a great sort of positive vibe from the place. And maybe in the last couple of years I've started volunteering, probably because my partner volunteers and wanting to be more involved and to try and help out.
I've made a lot of films in here. I've performed here in a musical group or a performance group. Projecting, programming, sort of event programming, bartending and bar managing, although not managing isn't the right word because we don't have a manager, but sort of looking after the bar whilst events are being run. So event management is probably the right word, even though it's not like the word.
Where's the boss?
Well, there is no single individual who decides, but on the same time, although there is in the Star Shadow there is no actual boss. There is obviously a bit of hierarchy, but it comes through knowledge, and anybody can gain the knowledge. But generally things get done because things get only done because individuals want to do that.
What's the matter with you guys? Isn't the real world good enough for you?
Yeah, that's why I thought it's really cool, because it's cinema, but normally in Japan, cinema is just, normal cinema. When I look at the website about this cinema, it may sound cheesy, but I kind of fall in love with that idea that cinema isn't all about making profits.
Do you want this?
It must have rules because we're looking after people's health and safety when they're here. I don't think that makes it a hierarchy as such because we all come together and decide on what should be going ahead with. There is a necessity for a small amount of differentiation between star members. So many interesting people here.
There's people who are more involved in the organisation than others, and whilst there's no sort of overall hierarchy in the sense that there's no managing director. There are people who tend to have a large input because they turn up to meetings and stuff.
It sounds like an idealistic thing to aim for, and it doesn't sound very practical. But and I've been in 100 different groups, gangs, bands, and whatnot that are a collective that have aimed at that and not managed it. Why it works here, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the magic factor is, but the minute I came in here, I knew that that magic factor was in place.
It's a good time that there's going to be a new building because I think, as always happens, a small group of people take a lot of the weight and a lot of the burden and responsibility, and particularly with it being time for a new building, that's quite a lot of responsibility on a few people's shoulders. I think it's got its faults, like any organisation, and it's not like this huge utopia, but it always sort of endeavours to be that utopia.
Let's have a little moment of silence where you're just experiencing what's happening in the room. So that's the candle light. There's some buzzes from the lights and from the PA. Gravity's holding us onto the surface of this rock that's circling a star somewhere in a galaxy in the universe, and it all exists, and it's really bizarre. Here we go. That must be 30 seconds.
Well, I remember this building as a kid nearly 60 years ago, and I remember thinking at the time it was a TARDIS of a building, because I couldn't understand how there were so many trucks could be in there and come out gradually one by one, all laden with groceries for the shops. When I was about 12, I used to come here in the school holidays and spend the day with my dad, who was a truck driver. And that company was known then as the United Yeast Company, part of the then Distillers Group. And as a school kid, in the school holidays, I had nowhere else to go other than spend the day with my dad. And it wasn't allowed for passengers to be on the trucks when they were delivering goods, so I couldn't be seen, and I used to wait across there at the St Dominic's Catholic Club. 5 years after standing over there waiting for my dad to come out there, my first job on leaving school was the biscuit factory. But then it was owned by a small upholstery company called Greaves and Elliott. So that now has devoted itself to arts and crafts and to demonstrate the culture of distant past.
I came to town cold in the summer. I came to town cold in the summer. Brown lanterns out around their face and a look of half surprise. Like a fox caught in the headlights, there was animal in her eyes. She says, oh boy, can't you see I'm the factory kind? If you don't take me out of here, I'll surely lose my mind. Oh, she was a rare thing, fine as a bee's wing. So fine a breath of wind might blow her away. Blow her away. She was a lost child. Oh, she was a running wild. She says, as long as there's no price on love, as long as there's no price on love, as long as there's no price on love, I'll stay. I wouldn't want it any other way.
I think the trucks were loaded up in the morning because I rarely waited more than half an hour over the road. And thankfully it was during the summer holidays, so the weather was kind. But yes, fine old building.
Did you come to the new incarnation?
No. It's, don't seem to have seen it at its best, but that's art for you. Mm-hmm. I like that. Don't know what it means, but I like it. Surfboards?
At the moment, I would say the priority would be seeking yeah, meaningful relationships with people. Yeah, and that could just mean talking to somebody on the train, you know, for 10 minutes in between stops, or it could be, those things are you know, the big thing, the big kind of relationships or friendships or whatever that you have with people. That just happens by hindsight.
You know, one day we're going to look back on this as the good old days. What about tomorrow? Don't think about tomorrow. Don't tell me all this isn't getting through to you, because I know it is.
When we were told we had to move, it was a sad moment, and everyone was just a little distressed. But it was very brief, and it was not traumatic in any way, because the way that people work around here is always to make the most of what you've got, rather than to sit around and wait for something more to come along.
It's a chance to build something which is more appropriate to the venues that we want. The cinema we've got here, I think this is very good, and it's really appropriate, but the bar area and the bar venue, the stage area out there, it's a bit inadequate for what it is. It's rather constrained. And I think perhaps to go to the new place, we'll be able to build something which is more suitable for what they want for gigs and stuff.
It is a bit lo-fi at the moment, and I think that lo-fi style has now had its moment. Better quality seating, nicer ambience to the place. Aesthetically, it needs to be a more attractive place.
I think it is definitely a really exciting time that we're moving into a new building, because I think it's a great time for new volunteers to get involved, and a new energy and a sort of recontinued energy to sort of be harnessed and carried forward. I think it's really important that the Star and Shadow is a really creative and welcoming space for people, and if that can kind of be enhanced and sort of all the more creative kind of things that can happen with the screen printing, with workshops, with the dark room, with the films that get made.
It helps cement the community really well. The different sort of activity, this physical activity, rather than the more cerebral kind of programming activity that we would do most of the time. So I actually think it's a very healthy thing for us to do, is to break it all down and build it all up all over again. So I think that in itself could be a really good motivator for things to move on and develop and grow and change.
Continuity. So by buying the space, get the continuity that we don't have to dismantle a venue and a building that has been built over the years just because some landlord decides that he or she wants to develop the space into something completely different. And hopefully also better events, better, just to improve stuff in general, whatever that means.
Most of the major rooms will be bigger. There's also going to be 10 at least artist studios for hire. That will bring in a small income hopefully, and help the place keep running.
There's going to be a lot of daylight. The whole front of the new building is going to be glass, so there's an awful lot of daylight into a lot of areas that would benefit some daylight. Now obviously the venue and the cinema are still going to be very dark spaces, and there's going to be a lot of dark studios as well, but to be able to sit and read in daylight in a kind of a lounge reception cafe kind of area is going to be a very different type of experience of the Star and Shadow. There's going to be a lot more green, hopefully, not necessarily straight away, but we've got an indoor-outdoor space that should be easy enough to plant up. We've got some planters, some big planters out by the car park, and hopefully one end of the building eventually will be a green wall. It'll drag a lot of people out who haven't been out in a long time. You know, we have a lot of members and volunteers who aren't necessarily here every week, maybe not even every month or every year. So it's good to give them an excuse to come back out and rediscover the place. I'm sure we'll see a lot of faces that haven't been around in a long time.
I hope you find that place, the one you've been dreaming about.
Yeah, I think as a documentarian, you can only document what's there because that's documentary. If there is something missing, then you can document an absence. How do you make a film around an emptiness, a gap? And that's where you can explore the edges of that.
Your kisses too, I never knew what they could do. I can't believe that you're in love with me. You're telling everyone you know that I'm on your mind each place you go. They can't believe that you're in love with me. I have always placed you far above me. I just can't imagine that you love me. And after all is said and done, to think that I'm the lucky one, I can't believe that you're in love with me.
Alright.
Right. Sorry?
That work?
Right.
Alright, cheers.
Right. Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
That's a take. Cut, print.